So we'll start with Elvis, and we'll show you the video afterwards so that we give some time to the technical person to actually come and help us to fix this. Thank you very much.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much, Sahel. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Elvis Paul, and I work at the Africa Union Commission and as a coordinator for the Great Green Wall program at the Commission. So we're very happy to see all of you here. On behalf of the Africa Union Commissioner, my commissioner, we're very happy to have you here. And we are
stretching across.
The video is good, yeah. So I will wait for the video to go on, and then we continue.
Let's give you this introduction.
Stretching across the width of Africa, the southern reaches of the Sahara Desert are known as the Sahel. It's a zone between sand and productive land, which has been severely degraded in recent years by climate change and desertification. But here in northern Senegal, the Sahel is starting to come back to life again, thanks to a little-known Pan-African initiative called the Great Green Wall. Launched in 2007, it hopes to provide a new way of thinking about the African migrant crisis. I'm Ina Moja, a musician and activist from Mali. I perform my music around the world and campaign for human rights here in my homeland.
Et ce n'est pas un mur qui sépare, c'est un mur de l'espoir, c'est un mur de la vie, puisque c'est un mur dont la finalité est de créer les conditions d'une meilleure résilience des populations. La grande muraille verte, quand elle sera totalement réalisée, je suis certain qu'elle sera une merveille des temps modernes, à l'image de la grande muraille de Chine.
The Great Green Wall was initially conceived as an ambitious plan to plant an actual 8,000 kilometers wall of trees and plants stretching from Senegal to Djibouti. But that hasn't happened, and the grand idea of a continuous wall of trees has gradually faded. Critics argued that a wall promoted the idea of a barrier against the desert, when in fact it's a much greater region that needs restoring. So the wall has evolved into a vision to green the areas surrounding the Sahara with a mosaic of trees and small developments, like this market garden.
ñuy faj suñu gàcce te def lépp waaw léegi nag buñ koy ñu ngi ciy ji ñu ngi ciy maraîchage bi ñu ngi ciy ji mel na kànje carotte soble batañse jaxute kaani ñu ngi ciy ji pamplemousse ñu ngi ciy ji mango ñu ngi ciy ji gola mooy déemi mag yi.
This has been a shared political vision of African leaders for generations, notably Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader in the 1980s. Now 20 countries across the region have come together to support the initiative. $8 billion have been given or pledged so far, mostly coming from international partners such as the World Bank, with some funding from beneficiary countries and the African Union.
People here live on the very front line of climate change, not in some abstract reality, but in their day-to-day lives they feel the effects of climate change, they feel the effects of desertification. This project really aims to redress this by creating food security for people that are food insecure.
And it's not just about food. Every day we see the wider impact of land degradation in the Sahel. The Mediterranean migrant crisis, the Boko Haram massacres in the Lac Chad region, and terrorist attacks in Mali and Burkina Faso. At their root, all of this can be traced to a cycle of poverty and lack of opportunity that is fueled by declining natural resources.
Il y a un lien évident entre les conséquences disons, de la dégradation des sols et les phénomènes migratoires. Vous savez que nos populations, particulièrement les jeunes, la principale source de subsistance, c'est l'agriculture.
In a generation, there's been a catastrophic change in the environment.
suuf si de màggat garab yi xam nga ñu di leen di dagg désertu Mauritanie bi di ñëw ngelaw bi yóbbu niw gi woon ci kaw suuf si du mën a continuer dem xam nga ndox mi vitamine ngay xam naa ne vitamine boobu dafa dem léegi dara da ngay bay lu yaatu am tuuti.
The land feels dead here. There is no bird song. Nature itself is being extinguished. The Great Green Wall aims to provide new opportunities for communities, not just to survive, but to thrive here once more.
Man bi ma fi nekk di bay booba garab yi dafa bare lool maanaam àll bi man dama daa bay ñetti saako génnee ci 10 tonnes gerte dugub mooy engrais fii mu nekk engrais moo koy dundal ak garab.
Places like Gouloukoum in Senegal are known as the villages with no man. There's a gaping hole in the local demographic. The young men have left to seek jobs elsewhere, as agriculture is no longer viable. It's driving the young away from their communities to seek opportunities far afield.
I can see that you have henna on your fingers. So, do you do it yourself?
Nogesek has not heard from her son for years. He was the major breadwinner for the family before he left.
Have you ever heard any news of him? How does that affect you economically?
It only takes a walk through the dusty streets here to see whose relatives have made it to Europe and whose haven't. The homes of successful migrants are large properties made of concrete and breeze block. The others are wood and straw, with thatched roofs and flimsy fencing. This is the pull factor that drives many towards that perilous boat journey across the Mediterranean.
di maanaam Sénégal dafa nekk réew mu pauvre amuñu liggéey ñu nekkoon ay ndaw war a dimbale suñuy waajur loolu moo taxoon moom ma obligé woon ma génn pour wuti.
In West Africa, up to 80% of the population live in rural areas. Youth unemployment is a huge problem across the Sahel and a massive driver of migration.
Ces populations, particulièrement les jeunes, pensent migrer donc des zones rurales vers les zones urbaines. Et lorsque dans les zones urbaines, ils ne trouvent pas, disons, satisfaction à leurs besoins, eh bien, l'Eldorado de l'Occident devient tentant.
As ever, the targets are huge. By 2030, the project aims to restore 100 million hectares of land, sequester 250 million tons of carbon, and generate more than 350,000 jobs in rural areas. Although it's not clear exactly how these numbers will be achieved. It's definitely small beginnings, with the hope of building to a bigger future. The Great Green Wall is a powerful symbol to focus global attention on the problems in the Sahel. It remains to be seen how successful it will be in breaking the cycle of exodus.
So, ladies and gentlemen, where is Elvis? So, Elvis, please tell us what has happened since 2007.
Yes, thank you very much, and we are all welcome here today. Bienvenue, karibuni. So, how do you feel after watching this video? I'm sure there are various feelings, there are various thinking, and there are various, what is this? But, so as I said, on behalf of the Africa Union Commission, we're very happy that for the interest shown. The Great Green Wall lies at the heart of the Africa Agenda 2063. It lies at the heart of the SDGs. And it lies at the heart of all the environmental, multilateral environmental agreements. It is one of the flagship initiatives of the Africa Union Commission. And since 2005, when the idea was started, and 2007, when it was endorsed and recognized as a flagship program in Africa, a lot has been going on. Talking about the challenges that led to the Great Green Wall, I think this video have briefly and succinctly showed us, talk about most of the challenges that led to the creation of the Great Green Wall. All of us who have been in development field for long, we know about the challenges in the Sahel, especially in the late 70s and 80s with migratory cricket, with extreme weather caprices. By then, the word climate change was still at a nascent state. Nobody knew what climate change was. But the African Union heads of state were visionary enough. Usually they are not recognized for being very visionary, but they were visionary enough to bring this program. And it's a program that came from them. It was not development, it was not NGO, civil society, or development partners. It's a program that came from the African Union heads of state themselves. And so it's a very unique program because it has all the support. And within this program lies the pillar of partnership. It's a program about international partnership. Partnership lies at the heart of this program. If you look at the preamble of the creation of this program, it talks about giving the Africa Union Commission the mandate to work with all its partners, the RECs, the regional economic communities, international development partners, civil society organizations, community-based organizations, and those working in the grassroots to ensure that we advocate enough, we get enough resources to ensure the implementation of the program. And so I insist on the fact that partnership lies at the foundation of the Great Green Wall for the Sahara and Sahel initiative. Where are we today? Since 2007, when it was launched, it has gone through a series. I think it's one of the initiatives that have gone through a lot. If you go online, you will see how many heads of state resolutions that have gone through the Great Green Wall, right to the creation of our sister in Nouakchott, the Pan-African Agency for the Great Green Wall, which is there for ensuring technical support to member states and monitoring, evaluation, and resource mobilization and advocacy. So far today, where are we? It started with 21 countries in the Circum-Sahara region. A lot have been done. Our colleague from FAO, Nora, is going to show us an example of one of the programs that that is being implemented in support of the Great Green Wall. But if I just give you some figures, one of the biggest programs going on now, which is going to the end, the Sahel and West Africa program of the World Bank and the GEF, which was a 1.1 billion fund to support 12 countries in the implementation of the Great Green Wall. We have the FAO actions against desertification, which is also about 40 million euros. We have the FLEUF of the UNCCD, that have been going on. We have bilateral and multilateral programs like with Turkey. A new program is coming up with FAO in 5 countries. We have so many programs that are going on. We had the Terra Africa in support of the Great Green Wall with our sister organization, NEPAD. We have the AFR 100. We have the ALI. We have... So Great Green Wall have been a catalyst and the political catalyst to mainstream the challenges and opportunities existing in the dry lands of Africa. And I can say without contradiction that it remains one of the most visionary ideas that have emanated from the African Union. And today, we are now working at pushing towards the other dry lands of Africa. 2015, the SADC member countries requested that they want a similar broad-based program. And we have been working under the leadership of the Namibian government to push for the extension of the Great Green Wall to the SADC region. And I cannot say the achievements have been massive. And one of the things that people don't count at achievement is the political commitment. The political is more important than anything because that is usually the weakest link. When the policymakers don't buy into your program, sustainability is doubtful. When the ministers, when the heads of state, when the international partners that work for the member state don't buy into your program, you should be very doubtful. So the biggest aspect of the Great Green Wall was the mainstreaming of the challenges and opportunities in the Sahel at the highest political level. That is one of the biggest selling points. And we will discuss further what have been done, but for now, I would use this opportunity to thank all our partners, EU, FAO, World Bank, IUCN, our sister NEPAD, and all those who have been supporting the Great Green Wall, including the Jeff and the World Bank and all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elvis. Thank you very much. So, not a wall, but rather a chain of solidarity and a mosaic of sustainable land management practices. Nora, please come and show us a concrete example on the field. You can just go down. And you go down.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, I will stand. I don't know if you hear me all. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I will not be very, long in the introductions. I would like to present you a bit of, flavor, what is going on the ground in the Great Green Wall areas with the support of the European Union and African, Caribbean and Pacific group of states, as well as, of course, in collaboration with the African Union Commission and a number of countries and partners in the countries, including Burkina Faso, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Ethiopia, and Gambia. And this is happening through what we call the Action Against Desertification project in support of the Great Green Wall and South-South cooperation. So, just a bit of quick introduction, why FAO is really interested in supporting this great initiative. Actually, if you can see the 5 strategic objectives of FAO, which is looking at eliminating hunger, food insecurity and malnutrition, making production systems, agriculture, forestry, and fisheries more sustainable, eliminating poverty, and also food systems, bringing value chains and increasing the resilience of the livelihoods of people to climate change and to shocks. They are really overlapping and complementing the SDGs framework, all the many goals of the SDGs framework, Agenda 2030, and also the African Great Green Wall initiatives, which is actually looking more at addressing the challenges of food insecurity, poverty, forced migration, climate change, biodiversity loss, desertification, and land degradation. And so, making it positive, really, the Great Green Wall is looking at improving the resilience of human and natural systems. And one of the priority intervention areas that has been identified to address these challenges is what we call, restoration of forest and landscape restoration. Restoration of productive systems, including forests, agriculture, pastoral land, agroforestry system, but also, please, look at other systems like fisheries. The Great Green Wall is crossed by different rivers in these dry lands, so we need also to look beyond only the land interventions. Just a bit of highlights, what we have been doing with our partners from the local level to the international level, to give you, let's say, a flavor. For the African Union Commission, we have been really supporting the Great Green Wall, the African Union Commission and countries, 12 countries, in the beginning, when the initiative started, to support, actually, to put roots on the ground of the Great Green Wall. Because, yes, it's true, it has been backed up by the heads of state and government, but there was a need to have this, what we call participatory processes on the ground in these countries to understand what are the priority areas, what are the priority, let's say, interventions, with whom we should work, mapping what exists, and building on the success that is already ongoing. And it has also helped this process, also through, with the funding of the EU, and with the UNCCD and other partners, helped to have all the partners gathered around what we call the Harmonize regional strategy for the Great Green Wall, and that was adopted here, I think in Banjul, by the African Conference of Ministers, and also by the African Union Assembly. Now, of course, before going and putting our let's say, feet on the ground, or at least parallelly to the action, we needed to understand where we are. So we have supported many partners and countries in developing capacity to assess what is the status of land use today in this Great Green Wall area, and also identifying, so to identify let's say, regarding the restoration, where the restoration is needed. And what we have seen, and please, I remind also everybody that the Great Green Wall is not just the Sahel or the belt from Senegal to Djibouti, but it looks at all the countries around the Sahara, from North Africa, the Sahel, and the Horn. And there we have, let's say, assessed the land use system, and we have got let's say, an understanding how much forest there were, agriculture, bare land or other lands, and pastoral systems, etc. And I will not go into the details here, but based on this, we have been able to identify, at least have an idea of the restoration opportunities around these areas. But please, just be, let's say, patient with us. This is a first assessment. It has been a bit global, looking more in depth to the Great Green Wall area from the Bond Challenger, restoration opportunities that was done at the global level. And we have identified, as you've seen in the video, they were saying that we need to restore 100 million hectares. And this is only counting the tree-based systems. We are not counting here the grasslands, etc., because we didn't have really the opportunity to do this. It needs to be complemented. And so it means by 2030, we will need, the ambition, the big ambition is to restore 10 million hectares per year. Can you imagine? How are we going to do that? This is why I think a number, let's say, partners, more and more we are, let's say, numerous, better we can achieve. But we will need a good coordination under the African Union and the Pan-African Agency and the national, let's say, institutions that are coordinating this initiative in the countries. So, field action. So what happened on the field? We have been, so I said, working in these 6 countries, so we have been putting rural communities at the heart of the action. So that they were the ones who actually identified the land where they want to restore, determined the objectives of the restoration, identify, for example, the species they want to put in their land, and also work with them to identify the good strategies for restoration. It can be a combined one, including assisted natural regeneration, or what we call farm and natural regeneration, planting, sowing, sustainable management of the land, and so on, but also bringing the diversity of the biodiversity to support actually the diversification of the economic livelihoods. And this is, of course, the capacity development of the different partners have been really key, but based on an in-depth capacity participatory assessment to understand what are the existing capacities and what are the gaps and how we can support and boost action on the ground. And when the strategy was planting, we really made a consultation, a broader consultation. I think we have here Serge Subga with us from the Tipalga, He has been one of the partners with whom we have run a participatory consultation work, for example, in the areas of Dori and in the areas of Djibo in Burkina Faso, to understand what the communities want to see on in their land. And bring in also the science to understand if those species have the, let's say, the ability to be adapted in this land, and looking at the native species, trees, but not only trees, shrubs and grasses for different purposes, including food, feed, material, pollination, and many other uses that the communities need. So just to give you, a number of species that communities wanted and they have put on their ground. Another thing that we have made is to make sure that communities also access to the good technologies, not all the right technologies to support the large-scale restoration in these areas. You have heard many times that, of course, digging half moons is one traditional good harvesting technical harvesting system to harvest water for restoration, but we have also made, and this is really very hard work, I would challenge everybody here to go to the field and dig these half moons, so bring in also access for women to this machinery that is mimicking, that has been actually inspired by an engineer who was inspired by seeing the traditional half moons digging, and he put this plow, and we have supported, for example, Burkina Faso and Niger in bringing this machinery through this project. Another thing that was also important, still bringing the science, making the link between the research institute in Burkina Faso to the field, making, the possibility to have inoculations of planting seeds and seedlings to improve the vigor of the species. And so far, I cannot tell you we have millions of hectares restored or under restoration. I'm sorry to say that. Not yet, but we have like so far 12,000 hectares under restoration, and this year in 2018 we have been able, let's say the partners and the local communities have been able to put under restoration additional 18,000 hectares around these countries. And moreover, we are looking at restoration not only at the land, planting and managing, etc., but also making the link for communities to access markets, so supporting them developing small enterprises, community-based enterprises, to access to the market, but using sustainably let's say, the non-timber forest products, for example, honey, balanitis oil, gum arabic, and make it supported, let's say, make them, help them enable access to the market. And I wanted to mention, we have here the secretary of Network for Gum Arabic and Resins in Africa, with whom we are partnering, and we have supported with other partners and the African Union for them to develop what we call the strategic framework for the Network for Gum Arabic in Africa, so that they can help communities add value on the commercialization of non-timber forest products, but also, and more importantly, drive the restoration and sustainable management of the resources. And furthermore, we were talking about trees and fodder, etc., but also the land that has been already put under restoration is already ready to have agriculture, for example, for the pulse production, and farmers have been already started making this happen on their ground. We have also been working on compiling the lessons, and so that we can put them on this platform, which calls DRIP, Dry Land Restoration Initiative Platform, to support exchange of information and lessons learned. Just a quick, just to end. We are now working even on expanding the Great Green Wall concept and approach, and mainly this project approach, through South-South cooperation. For example, Elvis mentioned the Bridges project, which is building, let's say, bridges between Turkey and 3 new countries, which are Sudan, Eritrea, and Mauritania. There is le Fonds Français pour l'Environnement Mondial, who has also supported scaling up of the work that we are doing in action against desertification in Burkina and Niger. And we are also, as Elvis said, supporting let's say, expansion of the Great Green Wall concept to the southern part, SADC region, and working with the African Development Bank to link our initiatives, like the Great Green Wall, with the Desert to Power initiative that is also happening in the area. We are looking forward to further more resource mobilization with our partners, not in a competitive way, but in a more holistic and coordinated way. We are looking at working together with UNEP and many other partners in the countries, but also internationally, to support developing a programmatic approach for the Great Green Wall under the Green Climate Fund. But also we are really looking forward to work under the GEF7, also in a programmatic and holistic also way to support this program. For example, and when we talk about programmatic approach that we are working on together with the AFDB and many other partners like UN and banks, etc., is to look at it as a house. You need building blocks. So from one side you restore, so large-scale restoration, the market value chain, the powering, let's say, the renewable energy, not only for cooking and for, we heard yesterday from the charcoal issues, but powering the value chains, because we need power also on the ground to get this done and have added value on the ground, and of course have a monitoring system. And this cannot be, FAO cannot do it alone, a country cannot do it alone. We need really to coordinate our efforts here. So, sorry, I have been tried to give a bit of highlights. There is a lot, but I think you have here our contacts and the website. So please, get in touch with us and we will be happy to provide more information. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nora. Thank you very much, Nora, for this very engaging presentation. I'm sure we will have a lot of questions afterwards. Now I would like to give the floor to Ulrich Appel from the Global Environment Facility. Let us see what is happening from the GEF perspective.
Thank you, and thank you very much for inviting me to this very interesting event and to sit on the panel. But actually, I only had a few remarks I wanted to share with you to show that we are really a proud partner of the Great Green Wall Initiative, and we are that since GEF 5. So that was when the Great Green Wall was initiated. And at that time, when we invested 119 million of grant funding, and we were, I believe, one of the earlier donors to this initiative. And at that time, it was really our largest programmatic approach so far that we invested in, and there was of course a lot of skepticism at this time also among our donors asking why do we need to bundle these 11 countries together into a large programmatic approach, why not following the business as usual that we did with individual separate projects country by country. But so this programmatic approach has then really also led to very valuable lessons learned of what is the added value of such programmatic approaches that it provides, like we have seen, and also in the movie, it provides much higher visibility, it provides much higher predictability also for the countries in receiving the funds. And then I think the most important thing is then really what we call the catalytic effect, so that this seed money was really able to really then to catalyze larger investments, and as far as I know, then if we count the investments that came later from other donors, and especially from the World Bank and EU and other donors, then this has amounted now, I think, to more than $2 billion of total investment into the Great Green Wall Initiative. So that was the start in GEF 5. We have continued to support this through some related projects in GEF 6, and looking forward to the future, to GEF 7. I wanted to a little bit to challenge the partners of the Great Green Wall and of the initiative, because we are here discussing a lot about restoration and about the AFR 100, and I think is this not all the same goals and objectives that we are trying to achieve in all those initiatives? So we should really think of how we bring this together, and also for the understanding of countries, of all stakeholders, of smallholders, of farmers, that we not talk about different things, but we are talking about how do we achieve sustainable and management, green productive landscapes for addressing all those interlinked issues that are food security, that is how we avoid deforestation, taking deforestation out of the commodity supply chain, and after all then sustainable livelihoods. So I think I'll stop here, because I think you certainly want to engage later in some discussion with the panel, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Now I would like to invite my colleague Jane to present actually a GEF project handled by UN Environment as another example of a field action.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jenny Mpamya Kubale. I work with UNEP as a GEF task manager. And UNEP, or UN Environment, is a bridge between GEF and other partners and governments. So as UNEP, we are in between. We act as an implementing agency for the GEF, but what that actually means is that we are supposed to assist partners in developing bankable projects to GEF, and that is my role. So I help countries and the NGOs and all partners in working with GEF in writing right quality proposals. Therefore, we have been working with GEF under the Great Green Wall Initiative. Currently, we have a project which has just started for the Great Green Wall Initiative for North Africa. How do you call it, North Africa? Yes, Northwest Africa. And the current project is a small one because it is looking at assessments, and we hope that when the assessments are complete, we will have actual data to write for substantive activities on the ground. We are also working with the Africa Union in the same regard to establish the same Great Green Wall Initiative in the northern part of Africa, to establish it in the southern part of Africa which would cover more of SADC region or East and Southern Africa. So once we are now in the middle of thinking, and we are collecting information to write a proposal for the GEF under GEF 7. And once it starts, then we will have a complete Africa, because we shall have the Great Green Wall in the north and the Great Green Wall in the south. Then we will have a great Africa green landscape, the whole of Africa. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jane. Well, now, let us give you the floor for questions, please, to our panelists. So I will start with the gentleman up there. 2, 3, to start.
Thank you very much. Andrew Wardell from CIFOR, the Centre for International Forestry Research. I've got a quick comment for the whole panel, drawing on some historical evidence in terms of knowing what were the origins of the Great Green Wall. And then I've got a specific question for Nora. The first comment is really for the younger members of this audience, so you actually know that in 1936 and 1937, Emeritus Professor Stebbing led what was called the Anglo-French Commission to look at the evidence of what was then perceived of the savannization of landscapes, i.e. the savannas were replacing the forests. And that led to the first idea of actually planting 2 green walls across the whole of West Africa. But for those who know world history, something happened in 1939. Do you know what that was? Yeah, World War II, and the idea was abandoned. But that, again, is just to present the historical evidence, which has been well documented. But my main concern, Nora, is given the very ambitious plans that you've outlined, 10 million hectares a year, and the fact that I think the second part of your 5-step model is providing quality research, planting material. I wanted to know if you've seen an article that was published in Conservation Letters last year, which I quote, concluded that forest and landscape restoration is severely constrained by a lack of attention to the quantity and quality of tree seed. And whether you have any comment about that, if you want to scale up from 18,000 hectares to 10 million hectares a year.
Let us get around the question. Serge, please.
Merci, je vais m'exprimer en français. Et je voulais juste intervenir par rapport à la présentation de Nora, qui a parlé de la Grande Muraille Verte et le projet ACD en tant qu'acteur de terrain, parce que je suis dans une localité où le projet ACD intervient et mon organisation TIPAL est partenaire opérationnel de la FAO. Donc je voulais juste compléter avec quelques points pour aborder un peu la mobilisation sociale, comment nous faisons pour que la population s'approprie la démarche du projet et ce que nous avons fait pour qu'il y ait des résultats aujourd'hui vraiment tangibles. Premièrement, au niveau de l'information, communication, nous avons essayé d'intégrer les communautés à travers leurs responsables. Ensuite, il y a on a aussi impliqué la municipalité qui informer la municipalité et puis ensuite descendre dans les communautés pour discuter de comment nous allons faire, non seulement pour choisir les sites, comment nous allons nous organiser pour que ces sites, une fois restaurés, soient vraiment pris en charge par la population, aussi bien en termes d'activité, mais aussi en termes de gestion des retombées, des ressources qui vont être régénérées, parce que c'est très important. Si vous faites la récupération et vous ne pensez pas déjà comment vous allez gérer ce qui va ressortir, vous allez retourner à la case départ. Donc, nous avons réussi à ce niveau à ce que les communautés bénéficiaires même s'organisent pour assurer la surveillance, parce que c'est des grands sites. Parce que la charrue Delphino que vous avez vue, c'est des grands sites, c'est des sites de plus de 100 hectares. Donc, il faut faire un travail de surveillance pour que les animaux ne viennent pas arracher ce que vous avez planté, ce que vous avez semé. Et aujourd'hui, en tout cas, des sites que nous avons, ce qu'elle a présenté ici, si je vous montre les images aujourd'hui, le visage a totalement changé. Parce qu'il y a déjà des arbres qui dépassent ma taille. Mais un aspect très important que je voudrais aussi aborder, on ne peut pas faire, on a dit que la récupération des terres, c'est de briser le cercle vicieux entre dégradation et pauvreté. Donc nous avons essayé rapidement sur certains sites de voir qu'est-ce qu'il y a comme potentiel qui peut immédiatement être exploité. Et à ce niveau, nous avons déjà travaillé avec un centre de recherche qui a besoin des semences, des herbacées pour accompagner les sites miniers qui restaurent les zones qui ont été dégradées par l'exploitation minière. Et cette année, par exemple, nous avons organisé les femmes qui ont pu déjà récolter les semences et qui ont bénéficié de plus de 3 millions de francs CFA comme retombées. Et ça, c'est très intéressant. Lorsque vous arrivez à valoriser des ressources immédiatement régénérées, vous allez focaliser l'attention, l'intérêt des communautés autour de ces sites-là qui vont en prendre soin pour que ça ne retourne pas en arrière. Donc voilà ce que je peux rapidement peut-être ajouter. Il y a beaucoup de choses, mais pour ne pas perdre du temps.
Merci infiniment pour cet exemple concret de la part des communautés que plus tard Nora, pour répondre à votre commentaire, expliquera aussi à l'audience. So our colleague Nora, when answering to him, will also give you like a small summary of actually the perspective from the community level and the activities of monitoring and management and the management plans that like they put in place. Monsieur.
Okay. My name is Zachary Makanya. I'm working for Pelham Kenya. Pelham is a network of NGOs in Kenya. We have 56 NGOs. But for you to know that Pelham Association also is working in 12 African countries. We're in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia. We're in Rwanda. We're in Zambia, Malawi, and Zimbabwe. We're also in South Africa, Lesotho, Botswana, and Swaziland. Now, I think this is a great initiative. We need to applaud the initiators, the thinkers of this initiative. When Elvis asked what is your first impression, for me it's an excitement that you can have just a great project going on in Africa. Now, what I wanted to ask is about what strategies, for example, is FAO using to ensure that this is done. And I wanted to make a suggestion. I don't know whether you're working with the networks. You see networks, already they are organized. They have members who are there and they are very organized. If you want, for example, to use maybe members in Pelham, already they have a secretariat, these members are on their own, and it is very easy to use networks Also, even as we work with NGOs, for me, I wanted to say one strategy that I think it can work is to use members, networks which are already active. Like Param Association has been active for the last 25 years. In fact, all these things we are talking about, because Param stands for Participatory Ecological Land Use Management. So we have been doing this for the last 25 years. We have a lot of to offer in terms of advice, how you can be able to promote also this great initiative. Otherwise, congratulations, I think it's a good thing. But I want to remind everybody, there's a lot of work to be done. We need to all stand to be counted so that we can make it successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let us have a first round of answers. Please, we will start with you, Nora.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you so much, the comment from the colleague from C4, I don't know if he's still here.
Yes, he's here.
Yeah, related to the mobilization in terms of quality and quantity of seeds that are needed for responding to the huge need for restoration in these areas. Actually, this was one of the main points that this project has been tackling, not of course to respond now to 100 million hectares needs, but even by starting the action identification project, even for doing this 12,000 hectares or 18,000 hectares, we needed seeds from different native species, trees, shrubs, and grasses. So what we did, one strategy was actually, I cannot speak, sorry. One strategy was to support, mobilize the seed centers in the countries where when they actually exist in those countries, and to check, of course, what is the amount of seeds available, but not only that, develop capacity, train the communities on seed collection, handling by themselves, and developing, let's say, preparing seedlings, etc. So this is one, have a seed value chain run by the communities. But, of course, with the support, technical support from the seed centers. And on the other side, seed centers, I can show you the table later, they didn't even have also the seeds to respond to the needs, and in some countries they don't exist. So what we did, we have mobilized seed centers that have been actually certified, for example, with the OECD schemes like Burkina Seed Center, IER, l'Institut économique de l'économie rurale in Mali, who have been also working a lot with different partners like Kew Garden and many other partners, and even with FAO before, to, one, support the provision of the seeds to the different countries, but also to train even more technicians on the ground in the villages to do the mobilization. And this is one very important point, and thank you very much for taking it up. The second point regarding the social mobilization, which is key, thank you very much, Serge, for providing further, let's say, elements, because it was really very short. Serge has been, is working, just summary what he said, working for the NGO Tipalga. He is really on the ground. We needed, of course, partners like Serge, NGO, to work with the communities, to mobilize the communities, but also to work through the municipalities, mobilize the leaders, le maire, the mayors, in order to make sure that they are sensitized and they are participating in the consultation, identification of sites and all the objectives of restoration in this area, but also to make sure that communities are not only involved in the restoration, but also after in the sustainable management of the restored areas, for example, through the committees like COGES, les comités de gestion in these areas, and also support the monitoring and the maintenance. And also one key point regarding the social mobilization is to make sure, while consulting the communities about the seeds, about the sites, etc., to identify, assess the potential that exists already in order to strengthen them and bring already quick gains to develop their livelihoods, for example, while training them on seeds collection and developing village nurseries, they have been able even not only to respond to the needs of the areas they were restored in their communities, but they have been able also to sell the seeds, to sell the seedlings to other projects like the mining project, but even the project of the World Bank in one area, I think it was in Niger, for the World Bank Jeff project in Niger, because they had also a big issue for getting the seeds and the seedlings. So I think creating this type of community enterprises on the ground so that the communities will not need me, will not need maybe one day the seed center or other partners, so that they are restoring by themselves the work, and having sustainability.
Thank you. I would like to invite Elvis and Ulrich maybe to answer the comment of our colleague from Panama, please.
Yes, I think, as I said in my talk, my opening talk, networking and partnership lies at the heart of the creation of the Great Green Wall. And networks like Pelum, which have been discussing within the past few months on how Pelum can be our entry point into bringing in Kenya and even some of the countries in Southern Africa in the Great Green Wall. So these networks are absolutely important because when the whole idea of the Great Green Wall was created, it was government, high policy officers, and the issue of bringing in CBOs, NGOs, and networks like Pelum was a bit sidelined. But now we are working very closely with various networks in West Africa, in the Horn of Africa, to bring them on board and put in tools on how we capture their contribution. So what you're saying is true. It's absolutely necessary. And on the history of the Great Green Wall from the 1930s to today, of course, I don't think it came from the skies. We recognize the history, but what we are saying is, as you rightly said, after the World War II, it died, and so it was taken over. There have been a lot of activities in Algeria. We also had the Muraille Verte, even in the Barrage Vert. In Burkina Faso with Thomas Sankara. In Cameroon, we also have a program for Muraille Verte. But what the Great Green Wall have been able to do was that these heads of state came together and said, we need a regional approach. Country-based approaches cannot work. And it has not been working. So I'm sure they took into consideration all the other efforts that have been made, all the history behind it, and that is the innovation of the Great Green Wall. Thank you.
Thank you, Elvis. Ulrich, a comment? No?
No, thank you.
Jane?
Nothing specific.
Merci.
Just one statement for the history of how the Great Green Wall started. For the one we are working on, forget about history. I know it is, we are not supposed to repeat history, but history repeats itself. So it repeated itself somehow. It's not us who are repeating it. The Great Green Wall for the Sahara and the Sahel initiative, this one we are talking about today, is a Pan-Africa program, and it was launched in 2007 by the Africa Union. This Great Green Wall initiative brings together more than 20 countries from the Sahara region. I don't need to read the countries, but its goal is to reverse land degradation and desertification in the Sahel and to boost food security and support local communities to adapt to climate change.
Yes, thank you very much. Let us take more questions. Please, short so that we can take more, questions. We will start with the lady back there close to the projector. The gentleman asked for it before, the young gentleman, and then after you it will be your turn. Okay. Let us start. Remember, short, straight to the point, so that we can also allow more time for other questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, has the people who are implementing the Great Green Wall Initiative looked at the survival rates of tree seedlings in the Sahel when you do tree planting as the main method of land restoration? And secondly, have you heard about farmer-managed natural regeneration, and what's your perspective on it? Thank you.
D'accord, merci bien. Je vais m'exprimer en français. Remercier en tout cas tous les panélistes. J'ai deux commentaires et une question. Le premier commentaire, c'est rapide bien sûr, c'est de demander à l'agence Grande Muraille Verte de faire beaucoup de communication. Parce que jusqu'à présent, dans l'esprit de certains, la Grande Muraille Verte, c'est des plantations. Or, il n'en est pas le cas. Le deuxième commentaire, c'est de considérer les engagements des pays membres, en tout cas de cette initiative, les engagements pris par certains pays à l'AFR100 comme des engagements de mise en œuvre donc, de la Grande Muraille Verte, puisque c'est le même travail. La question de précision, c'est qu'en Chine, et ça c'est adressé à Elvis, il y a eu signature à Ordos, en marge donc de la COP 13, d'une convention entre la Chine et l'agence panafricaine. Où est-ce qu'on en est par rapport donc à la mise en œuvre donc de ce protocole?
So, the question on land and community.
Okay, thank you very much. Panelists, I was just wondering how easy was it to harmonize strategic plans or action plans from so many countries. We work with many organizations, even with ministries, different activities, but getting a harmonized document sometimes is very challenging. So it will also be interesting to know whether there were challenges or not, and how did you go around it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Rafael Chaves from São Paulo State, Brazil. Elvis, when I watched the video, my feeling is of enthusiasm, but also a bit of concern. About that brief comment on why the 8,000 kilometers were big and too much for the time, too ambitious goal. And then my question is, which obstacles have been actually removed to upscale right now? And also, if Nora would please comment on that also, because it's now being upscaled to Turkey and other places. So which obstacles have been removed to achieve those goals?
Thank you very much. We'll take 3 more questions and then we pass we go to the answers. So the gentleman back there and the two, no, you did not have a question. You should have a question, and then we will go to the answer, and I promise we will go to you.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tommaso Menini, and I'm a founder and managing director of African Agency for Arid Resources. Now, what we do is we collect natural resources exclusively in arid lands, and we have a Pan-African scope. Now, I have read the hundreds of pages of report for the Acacia Operation Plan. Back in the days, I found it extremely interesting, also because clearly, since there are so many acacia that are planted, we have the need to create commercial linkages. But back then, I did not see the word private sector being mentioned, which I did today. I mean, I'm happy that we are looking at Gam Arabic as one of the livelihoods. And my question is, what are your engagements? How do you engage with private sector? I know that it takes some years for the trees to produce, but it's never early enough. And how you, what sort of selection criteria do you have for the private sector that you include into the program? Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Ross Conroy. I work with Komaza Forestry, which is a sustainable forestry company that works with smallholder farmers on the coast of Kenya. And actually, my question sort of follows off of the last one. Has this initiative considered sustainable timber production as part of the Green Wall Initiative? And specifically because there were a lot of non-timber products that were mentioned, but I'm thinking of sustainable timber as potentially an alternative to prevent unsustainable harvesting that might damage the long-term sustainability of the initiative. I mean, specifically like some of the comments that maybe you received from engaging with the communities, because clearly that's been a major part of the process. So I'd be curious to see what their comments are.
Thank you very much. Well, let us start with answers. Otherwise, we will just end up with a list of questions. Panelists, please. Start, Nora, please.
Thank you. I had many questions. I thank you very much. So I will. So one, regarding the survival rate of the trees or the seedlings that are planted in the Sahel, and if we consider the farmer-managed natural regeneration. As maybe I said in the beginning, actually in restoration we are using different combination of strategies based on the ecological or the status of the land we are talking about. In areas where farmer-managed natural regeneration, of course, we are favoring this, and our partners on the ground and communities are favoring that. But the planting and the sowing has been done mainly in those areas where you have bare land, the soil is really poor in terms of seeds, lateritic areas, etc. So, and what we are using, and as the communities have been always asking for, it's trees that are native, so local, so adapted to the area. Shrubs, also different types of shrubs, but also grasses, you know, for fodder, for feed, and medicinal plants, etc. So, and of course, combining with the land preparation for water harvesting, and also planting on the right time, with the right species, of course, this gives a bigger chance for the successful rates. And so far, we had rates like between even 70% and even more, because also the communities were consulted before, they are involved from the beginning, and they are taking care of the land areas that are restored. We didn't need to fence. There was a social fencing, you know, the social raising awareness raised in order to keep this going well, and also to even increase the chances for the vigor of the plants that are there, the material that is put on the ground. That's why we also are combining science research in order, for example, through rhizobia inoculation and also rhizobia, etc., to make sure that the plants are vigor enough. Now, the second point is related to the engaging from Niger, engaging the Great Green Wall in the countries with the Africa 100. I'm not sure Niger colleague is the focal point for Africa 100, and I think this needs to be done at the country level. There is a national agency of the Great Green Wall in the country. It's not FAO who will be putting them together. I think there is a need of dialogue between the two, and make sure that whatever is done through the Great Green Wall is really recognized and capitalized in the Africa 100 and using it as a catalyzer. Sorry, there were very important also questions related to the, maybe I will just take the one on the acacia. on the acacia and the products and the private sector. Thank you very much for putting this question. I would like to maybe after, I think, to link you with Mr. Benchi Kamai, who is the secretary of the NGARA, the Network for Gum Arabican Resins in Africa, which involves not only the producers, like the ones who are producing gum, but also the private sector. I think I will leave that to you after to provide more information, as well as maybe for the timber, etc. I think there is still, for example, the timber, of course, sustainable timber production for either wood or also charcoal production is very important. This, of course, it needs to be combined between in the planning. I think I will stop here, otherwise I will talk too much.
Yeah, I would like to give the floor to the other panelists, especially regarding the harmonization, the difficulties for the harmonization question, as well as the obstacles removed actually for the upscaling. And maybe you can also comment, complete like Nora's answer regarding, you know, like the connection between IFR 100 and the Great Green Wall Initiative synergies and cooperation. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Yes, the interesting comments, interesting questions about communication. Yes, we are doing a lot in communications to to make sure that people understand that it's not about planting trees. The issue of planting trees was just used as an image. It's not about planting trees. It's about everything. It's a mosaic of activities. But when you talk green, you talk trees. When you talk green, you talk grass. So sometimes trees is just used as a metaphor to show that it's green. About convention with China, yes, we had even 3 protocols signed with China. We had another protocol with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development with China. But what I have learned is that with China, you go slowly. You go slowly. If you hurry, you confuse them. So we are going very slowly with China. They will come back. And I'm sure it's less than a year now. I'm sure we are talking with them. The executive secretary is talking with them. And progress is going on slowly. The harmonization issue, yes. With such a big program, with so many diverse interests, diverse approaches, diverse agenda, as you said, of course, it's expected. If you don't have challenges of harmonization, you should be wary. But so far, we've been able to come across that with the Harmonized Regional Strategy, because the Great Green Wall does not have. The Harmonized Regional Strategy is a blueprint or a green print, but it is linked to the priorities of the member state. It's not descriptive or it's not prescriptive. It's very flexible and easily to adapt. So that is how we got through those hurdles. About whether the plan is very ambitious, of course, the challenges are also very ambitious. They say you cannot use a stick to break an iron. If the challenges are big, your vision must be big. We are very aware of that. That is why I said partnership lies at the heart of the whole idea. We have no illusion that it's going to be simple. You are dealing with multiple actors that are competing. You know about the various problems between the various users of land, pastoralists, farmers, hunters, fishermen, ecotourist groups. So it's a lot of people, lots of challenges, but that's why we are doing it. Yeah. Yes, private sector, of course. Our hope is to get them on board. That's why we are identifying with networks like NGARA that are touching at the heart of private sector. So, thank you.
Thank you, Elvis. Should we take Ulrich?
It's just that I did not want to let the event close without reiterating this point again, that the Great Green Wall is not about tree planting. and Elvis mentioned it already, and actually also the movie, the video tried to make this clear. Although in the past this idea was kind of stuck in the head as if the Great Green Wall was a physical structure, a wall that prevents the desert from spreading, and it really took us a long time and some effort to remove this picture out of the heads and out of the discussion. So I do not want us to create any misunderstandings that the Great Green Wall is kind of about tree planting. It's really a belt of sustainable land management, and actually not only a belt. We hope eventually to really achieve sustainable land management in all the countries that are participating in the initiative.
Thank you very much, Ulrich. Let's take the last questions. The gentleman and the two ladies over there, please. Madame also was actually among the first to ask for a question. Well, ladies first. Would you please start, and then after that it will be you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Noéline. I'm working for UNESCO for the Man and Bertha program. One comment and one question. With regard to the network, at UNESCO, we are the Secretariat for the MAP program. And all over the world, we have 686 sites in 120 countries, which are devoted to sustainable development. Okay? It's not only about tree planting, it's really about sustainable development. And in Africa, we have 80 sites in 2008 countries, and it represents a surface of 79 million hectares and 19 million people. So it's a huge network, and I hope that we will be able to interact with IFR 100 and with the Great Wall. My question is, you will face transboundary sites at one time. So how are you planning to deal with various policies and various regulations to be sure that what you are doing at transboundary sites are sustainable?
Thank you. I have a question to the African Union. This is a great initiative, and I think, as well put, can really attract resources for investment in ecosystem restoration. I just have a question to African Union to find out, in terms of coordination and monitoring of the investments to the results that is intended. What measures has the African Union put in place beyond the political will at country level to ensure the results of this investment? I'm asking because we've had so many such huge, colorful investments, but after investing, it's all studies and probably workshops. What have you put in place as African Union to have a bigger and greater change with this investment?
Thank you very much.
Yes, I'm here.
Voilà. No, excuse me, it was first the lady
I moved.
in the back. You moved, it's you, sorry. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Messi Mupeta Kandulu from the Forest Department in Zambia. I'm coordinating the Southern Province forestry programs. I'd like to find out if the Seed Center for the Forest Department research section in Kitwe is part of the initiative on the seed collection program. I'm saying so because the Zambian government has been directing that we go on a tree planting or land restoration program. I'm afraid that seed is becoming a challenge, and with that scarcity and the huge amount that we wish to plant, I think there could be a challenge of seed coming in from other countries that have got abundance like Tanzania, and that may sometimes not come with good results. So to what extent has the GEF incorporated the seed center in Kitwe or in the forest department in Zambia to provide the certified seed for large-scale planting not only for indigenous seed, but also for plantation species, because we want to restore plantations within the region. The other question is on research. To what extent are you embracing research for fast-growing species that may be more motivating for the farmers to adapt, like the hybrid eucalyptus, where they can cut and then they can copy and get very small pods that they can use for farming, like for tomato farming, because the region in Southern is more of a farming community. So what efforts are there, or what opportunities are there for us to tap into this opportunity to promote research into these species or hybrid seeds for support to the farmers? Thank you.
Thank you very much for these questions.
Thank you very much. I hope to keep it very short. I really appreciate, my name is Dora Kujo from the World Bank. I really appreciate the very interactive discussions and the new ideas and innovative approaches that have been adopted towards the Great Green Wall work. I also wanted to highlight what Elvis has said about partnerships. It would not take one institution or one country to do this. We need to strengthen the collaboration across, ensuring that there's that inclusiveness and there's that reduction of, doubling of activities, because we have limited funds to really expand work in this scope. So that partnership aspect is very critical. A last point was, as we've really talked about the private sector, I'm thinking, as I've learned from other sessions, that using flagship species, such as you've talked about the gum arabic, such as the shea trees, moringa, would always bring in private sector interest, because for them it's about revenue, it's about profit. So if you're able to hint more on these commodities, agro-forest commodities that are actually key commodities for private sector, I'm sure they'll be interested in sustaining the productivity of these resources, which at the end of the day contribute to the whole idea of bringing in private sector to support landscape restoration in the Sahel. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this last comment. I think there was a question over there. That would be the last one. Last question? Okay, so we can go for the answers. Thank you. Nora, you want to start?
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe I will pick 3 or 4 questions. One related to the transboundary sites, the issue of the policies that maybe could be conflicting and need harmonization. Actually, within this project, something that I forget to say, for example, Burkina and Niger, these are the sites, the landscapes are really transboundary. You have Dori and Djibo in the west, in Burkina Faso. In Niger, we have Terra. It's true that policies could be conflicting, etc., but the people are the same. If you think about the people that live in Burkina and Niger on transboundary area, it's always the same population, and it is even actually easier to work together. And we have been doing exchange visits and training between farmers, from women and men from Burkina and from Niger. So thank you very much for bringing this. But this does mean, of course, there is a need of harmonization, and we can use different frameworks. For example, the ECOWAS, there are this convergence plan of forest convergence plan in the regional economic communities. You have many others, and also the African Union, who is also developing the different harmonized plans that can be supporting in this regard. The other issue is related to the monitoring of the investments, because it's good to have, we heard about money coming in, projects, programs, but how much, what are the impacts socially, economically, and environmentally? I can say that it is a challenge really to monitor, to have a better picture on the impacts, who is doing what, and I think the African Union, but with the support of FAO and other partners, are actually developing capacity at the country level to have the monitoring capacity embedded in themselves, and have the national agencies in the Great Green Wall take the lead on monitoring the work. But we are not yet there. Huh? We need still a bit of work. It's still challenging. I'm not saying that it is very, very good. For example, for our project, we know how the baseline, and by the end of the project, we will know the impact. So I can give you a copy of this, and you can check what we are doing in monitoring. On the issue of the Zambia and the seed, the seed centers, I think FAO has developed, actually with the countries, it's the countries who have supported the development of what we call the state of forest genetic resources. I'm talking now about forest, but I think it's the same applying for all the genetic resources globally. And one of the big priorities that have been identified by all the countries, Africa, North Africa, is really supporting the seed supply, sustainable in terms of quality again and in terms of quantity. And you said about Kitwe, actually we have been working with Kefri, but also with the other, I don't remember now the name of the seed center in Kenya, to support also some countries for the grasses, for the provision of grasses species, because not all the seed centers in the regions are doing grasses, for fodder, native species. So I think this is important to also recognize that Kenya have been, in terms of solidarity and science, have been supporting these great green world countries where we are working. And regarding eucalyptus, coming here, regarding eucalyptus, there are different, we have still this misconception that the fast-growing species are exotic. It's not true. There are dryland species, and Mr. Benchikamai can say it, he's from Kefri, from the Kenyan Forestry Institute, species that are adapted and they are growing fast and can support the, for example, wood, let's say, provision of wood, etc., for timber. So we can discuss this maybe further with Ben to give you some examples, like, for example, Melia and other examples where we have been doing even trials so the farmers can be convinced that the different countries are, let's say, the species can work. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to talk briefly about the Zambia case. First of all, she directed the question to Jeff. We are still developing or working on how we will do the intervention for the southern region. So we haven't yet started, but we usually do consultations with the countries involved, and countries are supposed to give us their priorities. And they are the ones that we factor into the project or the program. So if we come to Zambia and Zambia pushes forward one of their priorities as support to the tree seed, it will find itself in the program. I appreciate the fact that there are tree seed centers, and almost every country has a tree seed center. But the project that we are going to look at for the Great Green Wall in the southern region of Africa is beyond trees. So the tree seed will be as one of the many activities that we shall do. We will keep you posted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen. Elvis?
Yes, quickly, on the issue of transboundary, I think that's why the Great Green Wall is at the African Union Commission, because that's the main body to promote transboundary and a harmonized approach to Africa's development. And if you look at the organigram of the African Union, it starts with the African Union and then the RECs. And through these RECs, the regional economic communities, we are working with them, the ECOWAS, the SADC, that's why we're talking about the SADC, all the other RECs, the IGAD, those are our partners. So it transcends, it goes very smoothly. And also when you focus on the people, it's easier, as Nora said. And about the issue of M&A coordination, making sure that goes beyond political goodwill, of course. As you have seen, the program is far above political goodwill. So we've transcended that level. And yes, I appreciate the statement from Dora. Partnership lies at the heart of the Great Green Wall. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, I think now it's time to close our panel. And I would like to thank you all for your time, for your interest, for promoting what have been said so far in this panel, in this discussion. I would like also to thank you for contacting us also, and try also to build more bridges between what you're doing and what we are doing. My name is Siam Drissi. I work in the Ecosystem Division in the UN Environment, and we've been really, really happy to host this discussion forum. And I thank you all for your attention and your time and your engaging questions, your engaging responses. Dear esteemed panelists, thank you all and have a nice day.